Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Devotions today. It's great to have you join with me. Well, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 8 says this: "The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down into the inmost parts." This particular verse reminds us that gossip often presents as a temptation that is very attractive, a temptation that is desirable, a temptation that is even in fact enjoyable in some respects. And the story that we're focusing on today, or the account that we're focusing on in the Bible today, talks about the impact of gossip or rumours on the life of people. So we're going to look right now at Genesis chapter 9, and we're going to look at the account of Noah and his sons in verses 18 to 29. Well, when we turn to this particular scripture, we find Noah is settling into life. He has just gotten off that boat. All the animals have been unloaded. His wife and his sons and their children and their wives have come off the boat as well, and they're settling into life. And we see post-flood in verse 20 that Noah has become a man who now works the soil. Prior to the flood, he was a chippy, he was a carpenter, but now his role in life has changed and he is working the land. Well, he's tried out some of the wine he's been distilling from his vineyard, and in this particular section we find out that he's clearly impressed with the results of his efforts, because here he is, he's overindulged and he's passed out drunk, and what's worse, he's naked in his tent. In Genesis chapter 6 verse 9, we're told previously that Noah is a righteous man, a blameless man among the people of his time, and that he walked faithfully with God. So it seems that this event in his life was out of character. This was a man who pre-flood had managed to live a life that was exemplary, that was above reproach. Even though he was living at that time amongst a people who showed no restraint. And yet here we find Noah, post-flood, lying in his tent, passed out from being drunk, and he's naked. You know, drinking has a way of uncovering people, perhaps not physically, but in the sense that their inhibitions are reduced when they are under the influence of alcohol. They say things and they do things they wouldn't perhaps normally do, and if they were sober. And if they were sober, they would be highly embarrassed about some of the things that they have done or said. Well, here Noah's been a man who's been mightily used by God, but he was also human, and we see that here. He had a moment of weakness. He failed. And his son Ham comes into the tent and witnesses his father passed out drunk on the floor, and sees that his father is naked. And instead of rendering assistance to his dad, because he could have done that, he could have grabbed, a blanket or a sheet or something and at least covered his father's nakedness so that his father had some sense of dignity. He runs out of the tent and he broadcasts the fact that his father's lying there naked to his brothers. Conversely, I wonder what it is that compels us to want to discuss the shame and the weaknesses of others, or the shortcomings even of others. We need to be careful that we are not allowing our own sinful nature to surface. We might feel justified at times in sharing other people's shortcomings. We might even reason with ourselves things like, others need to know the truth, or I just need to get this off my chest. But we do so much damage when we share the weaknesses and the shortcomings of other people. What does it profit us to bring shame to another human being, I wonder? Well, I know for myself, when people have shared with me intimate details about someone else, I've made a mental note of it, and I've thought to myself, I must remember not to share anything private with this person, because for all I know, they're going to do the same to me. We need to ask God to keep us from the damaging temptation of gossip, and it is too easy to fall into. We see in this account further along that the eldest and the youngest son respond beautifully to the news of their father's shame. They go to the trouble of taking a garment, they put it across their shoulders, they back into the tent and then throw the garment off their backs onto their father so that it will cover their father's nakedness. They loved their father so much, they didn't want anyone viewing their father in that state, and they didn't even want to view him in that state themselves, because back then that was a terrible shame to see someone naked like that. Here it is. Here these two brothers are showing love in action. The first book of Peter, chapter 4, verse 8 says this: "Most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins." When we are motivated by things like our own self-promotion or our own advancement in the eyes of other people, we won't hesitate to expose others. If we are motivated by our own desires and by our own keenness to be recognised by others and appear better than others, then we won't hesitate to share gossip. We won't hesitate to share rumours. We're going to hang others out to dry instead of covering their multitude of sins. But when love is in action, people will cover one another's multitude of sins. There are exceptions, of course, isn't there? The law has been broken. Someone's been abused. Of course, these matters are urgent because it involves the protection and safety of vulnerable people. But even then, it isn't necessary to broadcast these things. Only to take the information to those who have the power and the position to ensure justice is sought and gained. Friends, I want to encourage you today. If someone tries to lure you in with gossip, and it can be attractive sometimes to hear gossip, to hear things about other people, I want to encourage you to resist, to stand firm and determine in your own heart and in your own mind to be someone that shows the kind of love in action that the first book of Peter, chapter 4, verse 8 says. I'm going to read it one more time. Most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins. Friends, as you go about your day today, let your love cover a multitude of sins. God bless you and God be with you.